Greetings, Webbies. Let's tame FileZilla, starting with the download and install. I'm going to give you a few tips that may help if you're having issues with the FileZilla process. We're going to back it on up and see if we can pinpoint any places that you could improve along the way. First of all, you want to make sure when you download any open source free software that you go directly to the developer's site. In this case, it's FileZillaProject.org. And you want to make sure that you download the client. The client is what you're going to use as a tool to upload and download files. So we're going to click on Download FileZilla Client. Usually you'll get the appropriate option for what you need. The warning is this installer may include bundled offers. Most of them do. So I'm going to left click on the Download FileZilla Client button. It's selected 64-bit as being appropriate for my computer. And I'm going to select the free edition to download the free edition, which is just FileZilla. The other version is not free. So I'm going to go ahead and download that to my desktop, and then I'm going to lower my browser window. And I'll see now I have the executable file on my desktop. So I'm going to double click that. Please follow me through this install process because there are a couple of things that you need to know. Your pop-ups may vary depending on how your computer's set up, but the screens and pop-ups I get are going to be very similar to what you have, and hopefully you'll be able to figure out any questions, any variations from what I talk about. So I'm going to allow this app to make changes to my computer. I'm going to select yes. There's no way around that. License agreement. I'm sort of nerdy and I always read these things. I've read this one a million times. I'm clicking I agree. We're going to remove a couple of little apps that are piggybacking along. And this is just because it's a free tool, and the piggyback apps, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just we don't need them. They can be tiresome. They can get in the way. But we understand why they're there because it's one of the reasons why we can get such a good product for free. And always select anyone who uses this computer if you possibly can, because I've seen that it makes a little bit of a difference. And if you don't have admin privileges, you're going to want to make sure that you log in as admin. I usually use the default settings here. Whenever possible, I allow things to install to their default desired location. In this case, it would be in the 64-bit program files folder. That's going to give us the best results. If you play around with the file paths, you don't always get as efficient of a workflow as you would like. You can do it, it's fine, but it works better if you let it run the way it was developed to run. That's just my opinion from experience. I leave these as their default settings. Now, you might not get exactly the same window here. In the old days, you had to check to have these additional things downloaded. Now they're checked. You must uncheck them. You don't want this. Bing will take over as your browser, and it's hard to turn it back off and blah, blah, blah. You just don't want to do it. Uncheck that. And then the next is going to usually be an antivirus. You should have antivirus. I wouldn't get this now at this time because, again, it can just get in the way. So I'm going to uncheck that. Hopefully you already have antivirus. Okay, now the FileZilla is downloaded and it's installed and it's ready to go. I'm going to click Finish and it's going to open. Okay, at this time I'm going to go up to the top right corner and I'm going to right click out of this text box. Now, initially I'm going to leave this in its original landing area. It'll make it easier for me to explain what we've got going on. I have a handout that goes in a bit more detail about the shortcut buttons at the top, and there'll be additional videos that you'll be able to do that with. But in this particular case, I'm going to, well, it's landed in a folder where it probably wouldn't land. I'm taking it to the desktop, so that's likely where you would start out. So your host is probably going to be something dot something dot something. In this case, I'm going to type in the instructor provided host name. And then under username, I'm going to type in the instructor or server administrator provider username. And password, again, I'm going to type in the instructor or admin of the server provided password. Don't put anything by the port. Again, FileZilla does a really good job of finding the port that it needs. There can be conflicts if you're running virtual machines. I've got a solution that's much easier than changing the port, but we'll address that in another video. I'm going to click Quick Connect. It's warning me that the server does not support FTP over TLS. I'm going to click OK. I don't ever check Always Allow because I want it to prompt me as I go along to tell me what it's doing. This is telling me it's using port 21. Okay. Click OK. Now, this is really important. On the left top, we have the main structure of our local site. On the right top, we have the main structure of our remote site. Public_HTML is the equivalent of our root folder for right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on public_HTML because I want it to show up right here as the public_HTML is the root folder of my remote site. That's exactly what I want. Depending on where you are and what class you're taking, your root folder might vary. I'm going to go to my CTI 110 folder on my desktop. Now you can see I've got inside my file structure is as follows. I've got 4 lesson folders inside my public_HTML folder on the remote site. I want to add a lesson 4A lab to my lesson 4 folder on the server. So at the top, I'm going to click on my lesson 4 folder to open it. We're just going to pretend that we've updated since then. There are a lot of ways that I can move my file from my local folder to my remote folder. I can select the file and I can right click and I can click upload. That's one of the easiest ways. Or I can just left click, hold it, drag it over and drop it in. Now it's telling me the target file already exists. What do you want it to do? Do you want to overwrite? Do you want to keep 2 of the same? Well, I want to overwrite it because the one that I have local is an updated version of it. I don't want 2 versions of the same thing, so I'm going to let it overwrite the one that's already up there. You just have to pay attention to which is your newest file. So, and here I can see what's happening. This is telling me if things have successfully completed. So now I'm going to click back on public_HTML so that I'm looking at what's inside my remote root folder. Now I'm going to create a file path to this file on the server. How am I going to do that? Let's open a browser. Okay, first I have to identify the protocol. What rules am I going to use? In this case, I'm going to give the example of HTTP. It'll work even if it's HTTPS. It'll upgrade it. But if I put HTTPS and it's not, it's HTTP, I'll get an error. HTTP://. Now I'm going to identify the domain. I'm going to identify my server space. If you're using the CTI server, your username is going to be prefaced by a tilde. It's a little curvy line. This is the only place you do that. You don't do it when you're logging on. Then I'm going to go /. I'm going into my public_HTML folder, but I don't type that because when I'm working in this particular type of environment, that's understood. So public_HTML is not part of the file path. The next thing would be my lesson 4, and I'm going to just look carefully and make sure I do it just exactly the same. Lowercase, so I want lesson 4. Just one uppercase L instead of a lowercase l can break your whole file path. And that's a bummer when that happens. I'm going to move it just to check again. It's mistrick-lab4a.html. Okay, and then I'm going to hit enter. In a perfect world, it should connect directly to my page. But it didn't. So let's see, what could I have done wrong here? So I'm glad this happened. I just put tilde mistrick and I forgot to put an S at the end. Watch, just that one little typo on my part, that one little careless mistake, and I got that horrible not found. Let's try it again. There we go. Carefully type the file path, and if you haven't typed the file path into the address bar, if you haven't typed the URL, a warning should go off, because if you've just previewed a page, you're previewing it locally on your computer, and that file path is not to the file on the remote server, it's to a file on your computer, which is never going to work, thank goodness, because you don't want people to be able to get to a file on your computer. Make sure that you type in the file path. If I type in HTTP and it's secure, I can always change it, but if I type in HTTPS and it's not secure, the link's going to break. So the takeaway from this is to make sure that you type the file path into the address bar. I hope you found this video helpful. Please have a great day.